Alright, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from StreetScores, and we have two major updates in this video alone, because I have a few other updates that I'm working on that I want to get to y'all by tonight. But right now, we're discussing how the Washington Commanders hired an elite tight ends coach, one of the best in the business. We're going to dive into who he is and whether he's potentially being brought here to recruit top free agency tight end options. We're going to take a look at some of those names as well and how much they may go for market value. And then also, the Washington Commanders hired a new offensive passing game coordinator with a promotion. Is this guy an upgrade over who we had doing that job last year and Brian Johnson, really the last 2 years? We're going to dive into all of that and more, but before we do, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinion video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all the content. Appreciate y'all for supporting every video. Shouts out to Watch to the End Gang, man. Shouts out to the Noti Gang, late night crew, early morning crew, all of that, man. And again, I have so many things that's going on that I want to talk to y'all about, like our NFLPA grades and the most recent Jeremiah Love news and how much he was praising the Commanders and all of that, and Jordan Tyson saying his meeting with the Commanders was the best one he had all combine. Like I'm getting all of that. We'll probably get to a lot of that stuff later on tonight, so just stay tuned. Without further ado, let's dive into this video right now, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so first things first, I wanted to make sure I corrected myself because I've been saying for the past few videos that the legal tampering period starts at March 10th and then the actual free agency starts March 12th at 4 p.m. But I was wrong. I'm not exactly sure where I got those dates from. It's one day off. I don't know what happened there, but it actually starts on March 9th. The legal tampering period, when even though things aren't official, but they are like things are said and they're like promises. They're like handshake deals. Like such and such team is signing such and such player to this amount of money for this many years in a verbal agreement. And then it's March 11th when at 4 p.m. when the new league year starts, when those deals officially go through, when trades officially go through. Just like how the Jets and the Titans did a trade for Jermaine Johnson, ex-Georgia Bulldog, for Tavondre Sweat. You know, that trade doesn't officially go through until March 11th, 4 p.m. That's when but March 9th is when you're going to start seeing the Commanders have signed such and such, Commanders have signed such and such, all of those type of things. Hopefully it's one of these tight ends we're going to talk about in this video. So I just wanted to make sure I got that out the way and apologize for giving y'all the wrong dates for the last few videos. It is March 9th, legal tampering period, March 11th at 4 p.m., the new league year, just to let you know. Also, feeling pretty bad, like under the weather, so just, you know, stay with me, but I gotta get these videos out, man. But now moving on, first up, we gotta dive into how the Washington Commanders just signed a new, well, technically promoted a new offensive passing game coordinator from within. We didn't bring in a guy from the outside to do that. We promoted a guy that was already here. Remember, Brian Johnson was our offensive passing game coordinator since 2024, since Dan Quinn took over as head coach, since Adam Peters took over as our general manager. He was an ex-Eagles offensive coordinator, and then he came here to be our offensive passing game coordinator for the past 2 years. He just left to go to the Rams. We replaced him with an internal promotion. Ian Rappaport was the first to announce it as of about like 5-6 hours ago. The Commanders are promoting tight ends coach David Rye to pass game coordinator per me and Tom Pelissero. The first time offensive coordinator David Blau locks in his top lieutenant for the new offensive scheme. And shouts out to Donna Hopkins. She said congrats to Coach Rye because this is a really smart move on the Commanders' behalf. And David Rye is another person like David Blau who has this like mystique about them, like where there's a lot of raving reviews behind the scenes in the NFL circles about his potential to be like an elite offensive mind one day. Like back in 2024, there were whispers that Tavita Pritchard, David Blau, and David Rye had the potential to be great offensive coordinators in the NFL. And, you know, on some like Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Mike McDaniels, Matt LaFleur type of stuff, all of these geniuses in the same coaching staff, but in lesser roles. And then, of course, Tavita went on to become Stanford's head coach. So you see the potential there, head coaching and running the entire football program at Stanford too, not just any college, Stanford. Then, of course, David Blau went on to be promoted to our offensive coordinator. And you see Dan Campbell, the head coach of the Lions, and Ben Johnson, the head coach of the Bears, saying that, man, we're kind of sad that we missed out on getting David Blau to be a part of our staffs. And then you have David Rye, who was left, as one of the only high potential offensive minds that everybody was whispering about that hadn't been promoted yet. So this move made a lot of sense. Now he is promoted. He didn't get as big of a promotion as the other two names, Tavita Pritchard and David Blau, but it's still a promotion nonetheless. And again, with him being one of these potential offensive guru geniuses, prodigies that's just waiting for the opportunity, be prepared for him to leave for his own offensive coordinator job probably within the next couple of years as well. He's going to be an offensive passing game coordinator. If this offense looks good, if this offense looks as great as I hope it does, and I think it does as well, he's going to get a lot of the credit, and some NFL team is going to steal him away from us to be their offensive coordinator. Shouts out to Paul Connor. Now, he brings up a great point because there's two different sides of this. He said, I've heard nothing but good things about him, but who do I hold accountable for Ben Sinnott's lack of development? Remember, Ben Sinnott was a second-round pick of the 2024 NFL Draft, and we have not seen any really receiving potential out of him. No receiving production, all of that. And so, honestly, to answer that question, if I had to guess, I'd probably place the blame on Cliff Kingsbury for not drawing up enough plays to target him. But I'm honestly not sure. To be like a completely hunted, I don't know. But it is a bad look on a former tight ends coach and now offensive passing game coordinator David Rye that a second-round tight end just has not developed much at all. But George Carmen brings up an interesting point. He said, congrats to new passing game coordinator David Rye. He even uploaded a picture that he took with David Rye, like they're standing next to each other taking a picture and everything. He said that he presented a film study session in May 2025 for season ticket holders. That's great. That's so fire. I wish I knew about that. I wish I could have attended. He said that he was effusive of tight end John Bates. When asked about Ben Sinnott, he said, quote, don't give up. He'll get his opportunities, but he's playing behind a future Hall of Famer and the best blocking tight end in the league. Shouts out the Carolina Commander. He quote tweeted this and said, I think Sinnott is much more involved in the offense in 2026, and I'm excited to see it. So you have a guy that maybe Ben Sinnott wasn't getting developed because he wasn't being given enough attention by the time John Bates involved in the passing game more than Ben Sinnott, even though Ben Sinnott has far more receiving potential. If we're talking about traits, athletic ability, hands and stuff like that, he should be the better receiving type. Maybe Ben Sinnott was neglected. I don't know. But Dan Quinn did emphasize Ben Sinnott being a better fit for David Blau's potential West Coast offense is going to be more like a Ben Johnson offense during his combine presser just a couple of days ago. And he did say that Ben Sinnott will get more opportunities moving forward than he did the past couple of years since he's been drafted here. But I'm kind of like, I'm at to see it to believe it, to be honest. Please stop wasting second-round picks, Adam Peters and Dan Quinn. Please get something out of this guy. But shouts out to Ben Standig. He said the Commanders promoted tight ends coach David Rye to pass game coordinator. Source confirms NFL Network. Rye replaces Brian Johnson, who left to go join the Rams, along with Cliff Kingsbury. The interview for offensive coordinator here served as offensive coordinator 1 year for Vanderbilt, and now he'll help David Blau. New tight end coach incumbent, unclear about who fills Johnson's assistant head coaching job, though, and that's a good point, too. We already know who the tight ends coach is that's coming in to fill in. We're going to talk about that the second half of the video after we get a word from our sponsors. But we also have an assistant head coach role that maybe, that's not something vital to assign to somebody. That we don't have to have an assistant head coach. You typically give somebody that so that you can keep them and stop them from going elsewhere to get an even bigger promotion. That's kind of what we did with Brian Johnson, to kind of put him in like a head coach and internship program. It didn't necessarily work out that well for him going to the Rams to just kind of be a part of the offensive staff. But either way, that's not something we have to fill. But offensive passing game coordinator had to fill that. Defensive passing game coordinator, hopefully we fill that soon. And then again, we already know who we use to fill in tight ends coach. Now, I thought maybe Lunda Wells would make sense as the guy that we would bring in. Because remember, the Commanders wanted to bring Lunda Wells from the Cowboys with them back in 2024 when Dan Quinn first became the head coach here in Washington. And they wanted him as like an offensive lines coach back then, even though he had been the tight ends coach for the Cowboys, doing a great job developing fourth-round pick Jake Ferguson into a better player than our second-round pick Ben Sinnott was here. But the Cowboys blocked it. And then we interviewed him just earlier this year for the offensive coordinator role before we gave it to David Blau. So was some real recent interest there, literally just like a month ago. That could have been a solid candidate, but again, we went elsewhere with a different tight ends coach that we're going to dive into soon. But again, even beyond just offensive passing game coordinator, which is solidified, we have one of those now with the promotion from our tight ends coach, David Rye, to that. But we still got to figure out what we're going to do with defensive passing game coordinator after Jason Simmons left that role vacant by going to Pittsburgh last week. And then the Commanders hired LSU safeties coach Jake Olson, who coached with our now new defensive coordinator, Durante Jones, back at LSU at one point in time. But he was the linebackers coach then. But we hired him to replace Jason Simmons to be our defensive passing game coordinator. And then Lane Kiffin came out of nowhere, swooped in, and we don't know what he did, but he did something to convince him to stay with LSU. I'm pretty sure he gave him a lot more money or something like that. So it's clear that the Commanders are looking for a defensive passing game coordinator. Just the first guy that they wanted to get to do it, Lane Kiffin found a way to somehow keep him in building with LSU. Now we're probably looking for another guy, and they're probably taking the time to make sure they hire the right guy. Now, don't forget that also on top of that, there are reports, trustworthy reports, that the Commanders were looking for like a front seven guru, pass rush specialist type of guy, just a couple of weeks ago. And maybe they're still looking for that as well. So just to review, offensive passing game coordinator, filled. We're about to talk about how the tight ends coach got filled to replace that guy to move to offensive passing game coordinator. We're looking for a defensive passing game coordinator, and maybe we're still looking for a pass rush specialist, front seven specialist, and maybe we're still looking for somebody to give the assistant head coaching title. But wonder no more. Again, we have a tight ends coach now, and he's one of the best in the business. And before we dive into that, man, shouts out to Sleeper, man. Make sure you stick around with Sleeper and make money year round. Even though football is over for now, we still have March Madness and the NBA playoffs, baseball, hockey, all of that type of stuff, even more sports than that. And just because football is over doesn't mean that you can't keep having fun and making money with Sleeper. And also, they just keep on innovating and making the app even better by the week, better by the month. Now Sleeper has even recently added team picks. You can now choose which team wins overall matchups as well, on top of the already individual player stats that you could have chosen from. And even though I rock with my dog Ant over there with them Timberwolves, and I rock with my Hawks on the slick just a little bit, but y'all Wizards are looking like they are building something really special over there right now. And 2026 and beyond is looking very bright for the Wizards. But even right now, like you can see on the screen, you can select who you think will win this NBA championship coming up in a couple of months. And even if you want to go even further, you could even select who you think is going to win the 2027 Super Bowl after the 2026 season. If you feel like the Commanders of that team, you can go ahead and do that right now. I mean, if you're some type of profit, go ahead. But the earlier the better for maximum profit. And also, as you can see right now, I mean, even the comment sections have their own thing going on. This is own world. They're hilarious just by themselves. Like they did Jerry Jones dirty right here with this one. And still, even right now, new users can get a free $20 without a deposit on top of the already 100% match up to $100 using my promo code SCORE, that's SCORE. Or to make it even easier for you, you can just click the link at the top of the description of this video and every video and live stream I'm doing all season long. Again, shouts out to Sleeper. Make sure you pull up for the new team picks feature. Definitely worth it. Now let's get back to the video, man. Let's get it, man. This is arguably one of our best hires of the entire offseason. You could argue Eric Henderson is our defensive lines coach, a run game coordinator, and now our new tight ends coach are arguably the two best hires we made all offseason, outside of course, David Blau as offensive coordinator, Durante Jones as defensive coordinator, because I think both of them are going to do great jobs. David Blau on the offensive side of the ball, Durante Jones on the defensive, coming from the Brian Flores scheme, and again, David Blau coming from the Ben Johnson more like scheme, Kevin O'Connell, Dan Campbell. I think those are going to be great. But as far as like positional coaches or anything that's outside of offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator who's going to be running the entire shows on the respective sides of the ball, Eric Henderson, and now your new tight ends coach. So the Commanders replaced David Rye with an elite tight ends coach, and it certainly seems like an upgrade there compared to what David Rye was doing as our tight ends coach. Even now, he's not offensive passing game coordinator. But I mean, a lot of people are saying this is one of the very few bright spots from that Arizona Cardinals organization. We're talking about coaches, players, front office guys. He was one of the very few bright spots. Shouts out to Tom Pelissero. He tweeted and announced at 4:44 p.m. the Commanders are hiring Ben Steele as their tight ends coach per source. A former NFL tight end, Steele spent the past 3 years with the Cardinals coaching Trey McBride. Now he heads to Washington, which recently promoted David Rye to offensive passing game coordinator. Shouts out to Jay Daniels MVP. He said this is such a huge hire, and I completely agree, bro. And Ben Steele goes way back with Dan Quinn. Ben Steele was promoted to tight ends coach by then Atlanta Falcons head coach Dan Quinn back on February 5th of 2020. following a season of being an offensive assistant, and Quinn praised Steele's positive impact on the tight ends, citing his work in 2019, and Steele joined the staff in 2019 after coaching with the Buccaneers. So he's kind of been all over the place. At the very end of the video, I'm gonna give you like his full rundown of everywhere he's been, if you care about that. I'm saving that to the end because some people may consider that boring and may not care about it. So instead of wasting y'all time, we'll save that towards the end for those of y'all who do care. But shouts out to Deuce Red Zone. So of course, again, there's the obvious connection with Dan Quinn that goes way back. But Deuce Red Zone said, in addition to working with Trey McBride, he coached under Dan Quinn in Atlanta, starting as an offensive quality control assistant before being promoted to tight ends coach. Ben helped Austin Hooper earn his second Pro Bowl selection while putting up career numbers. Very solid hire for the Commanders. Raise hell. And I do want to emphasize the fact that a lot of people view tight ends coach as like the best positional coach development program for future offensive coordinators. You know, quarterback coaches, of course, make good coaches potentially. And really anybody. You could be a running backs coach. You could be a wide receivers coach. Whatever your background is offensively, you still can be a great offensive coordinator. But it just seems, you know, statistically and even just logic based that a tight ends coach will give you the best opportunity, the best chance of being a great offensive coordinator that has to run the entire show on the offensive side of the ball, because tight ends have to do a lot of offensive line stuff. You have to know protections, run blocking, pass protection, you know, IDing potential blitzers, like all of the super quarterbacky type of stuff. And then you also have to be a receiver, so they understand different, you know, how to attack certain coverages, route concepts. Like the tight end is like the perfect blend of a lot of different other positional coaches all in one person. So tight end coaches usually make the best offensive coordinator. Similar to like on the defensive side of the ball, linebackers, you have to know run fits, you have to know how to stop the run, you have to know coverages, you have to know literally everything. That's why linebackers are the quarterback of the defense. Linebacker coaches tend to make great defensive coordinators. Same thing with tight ends coaches. So Ben Steele may be another guy that's potentially on the way out eventually to becoming a really good offensive coordinator sometime down the line in his career. But as of right now, he will be our tight ends coach, and good, because he is the reason Trey McBride is the highest paid tight end in the league right now, and arguably the best fantasy football tight end, arguably the best tight end period football in all of football. Shouts out my boy Brock Bowers though. And even a Cardinals fan said, again, I thought Ben Steele was a bright spark on a very bad staff. One of the very few people who actually matter. Shouts out to Kevin Murray, who's a Cardinals fan, for saying that. And then even a Raiders fan, speaking of my boy Brock Bowers, there was a Raiders fan back on February 15th that said, you know, the Raiders potentially bringing in Ben Steele as their tight ends coach would be the best assistant hire by a mile. Outside of head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, this is the best hire the Raiders could possibly make throughout the entire staff. Said Brock Bowers and Mayer, development would be unbelievable. Well, sorry Raiders fans, Commanders ended up getting them. And shouts out to Trey McBride, because you got to remember, this is not like this top 10 supposed to be this elite tight end assumed coming out of the draft type of stuff. He came out of the 2022 draft in the second round, 55th overall. That's not like a late round draft pick, but it's also not the same hype that like Kenya Sadiq is getting coming out of the draft. They're supposed to be somewhere in the teens of the first round. And then mind you, an even better comparison is the fact that Ben Sinnott was drafted in a very similar range 2 years later, but 2 picks before, second round, 53rd overall. And Trey McBride has been the far better tight end throughout his career than Ben Sinnott. But crazy enough, athletic profile wise, you're looking at relative athletic scores, Ben Sinnott is more athletically explosive. You know, Trey McBride was, of course, a more productive college prospect coming out. So that's the argument of like his tape coming out of college versus Ben Sinnott's potential and athleticism. Trey McBride had the higher floor, the better tape, the better production coming out. But like pure athleticism, pure movement skills, Ben Sinnott had a 9.72 relative athletic score. That was the 33rd highest among all tight ends ever in NFL history, with a 4.68 40-yard dash, a 40-inch vertical. Now, granted, never really saw all of that ridiculous athleticism on tape while watching him, but he killed it at the combine. Salute. But very explosive, very agile according to his relative athletic score. Again, a 9.72 versus Trey McBride, whose was good, but it wasn't great or elite. He had an 8.03 relative athletic score. So nowhere near the level of a Ben Sinnott. My point is, Trey McBride has been great. A lot of people, especially a lot of Cardinals fans, specifically and Cardinals writers, literally credit Ben Steele with being one of the main reasons why Trey McBride has been as great as he's been. And so if you can get Ben Sinnott, who's a better athlete, with the same coach that had Trey McBride going crazy these past couple of years, maybe we could do something. Who knows? Maybe Benson is just a lost cause. I hope not, though. But if anybody, my point is, if anybody can unlock Benson and make him look more like the second round pick that we drafted him to be, it's this guy. You can't get much better than Ben Still out of anybody in the entire NFL. Shouts out to Grant Paulson. He said, new Commanders tight ends coach Ben Still spent the last 3 seasons in the same role with the Cardinals. Arizona's tight ends during that time, Trey McBride, may have been the best tight end in football. He averaged 106 catches for 1,070 yards per year. It's a shame Still can't bring McBride with him. But to that point, maybe he could potentially help us recruit one of the top free agency tight ends mid-March, coming up in that legal tampering period that starts March 9th. Again, and I've looked at this and talked about this in several videos recently, but just real quick again, as far as the top tight ends available, I'm going to go past Travis Kelce because he's either playing for the Chiefs or retiring. But he has the highest market value, projected market value, as far as what potential contract he'll get in free agency by Spot Track at $10.7 million per year. David Njoku actually has the second highest. It is by a pretty considerable margin compared to the next guy in Isaiah Likely. David Njoku is projected to get $10 million a year. Isaiah Likely is projected to get $8.8 million per year. And I like Isaiah Likely more, period. Even if him and David Njoku were projected to get the same exact amount of money, I prefer Isaiah Likely, me personally. But Chiggy Okonkwo of the Tennessee Titans projected to get around $8 million per year. Cade Otton projected to also get around $8 million a year. If you can get me Brian Steele, David Blau, Dan Quinn, Adam Peters, if y'all can get me one of Isaiah Likely, Chiggy Okonkwo, Cade Otton, or David Njoku, and that's probably my order, like my rank of exact order of which ones I want the most. Likely, Okonkwo, Otton, Njoku. If you can get me one of those 4, I think we're cooking with fish grease. Now, of course, Kyle Pitts got tagged, so he's off the market. Pro Football Focus has Dallas Goedert ranked as the best available tight end in free agency after that, but he's not that young. You know what I'm saying? We'll see how that goes. He's at 31 years old. Well, I mean, I guess you could go that route if you just wanted a dependable guy that may not necessarily cost as much, even though I think he'll end up going back to the Eagles. But then when we're talking about high ceiling, potential to be another Trey McBride, potential to take over and be one of the best offensive weapons in football, you know, including not only just tight ends, but receivers, quarterbacks, running backs, Isaiah Likely will probably be at the top of the list. Now, of course, you're banking on potential and not previous production, because 2025, granted, he was taking a backseat to Mark Andrews, and when he did get opportunities, he typically was very explosive, and he's even said it himself, I want to go somewhere where I can be tight end 1 and be featured in the offense. Hey, look no further than the Washington Commanders with Jaden Daniels and David Bly off of the play action from under center, and then Isaiah Likely streaking down the field. I've seen some plays where he can score touchdowns off of those type of situations, bro. Then they have David Njoku next. Then they have Chiggy Okonkwo, same thing. Like, I've seen play action with the Titans, and then Chiggy Okonkwo unleashing the opposite way. Like, you have the quarterback play action rolling out right, Chiggy kind of leaking out to the flat left, and then he's able to turn what should have been a 5-yard game, break some tackles into like a 20, 30-yard touchdown. That's another guy I would like. Now you have Charlie Kolar. Shouts out to Pro Football Focus. That's a sleeper. A lot of people asleep on him. Shouts out to Pro Football Focus for not sleeping on him, not overlooking him, because a lot of Ravens fans are like, I prefer to make sure we re-sign Charlie Kolar than to re-sign Isaiah Likely. A lot of Ravens fans feel like he was the best of the 3 tight ends between Charlie Kolar, Mark Andrews, and Isaiah Likely. A lot of Ravens fans like Charlie Kolar more based off of what he did in 2025. Maybe that's a sleeper that we could try to steal away from them. Darren Waller, I mean, he's either playing for Mike McDaniel. I think he went to the Chargers, right? Or he's not playing at all. Austin Hooper, I'm good. I don't know why all of these guys are ranked above Cade Otton. I think Cade Otton is easily one of the 4 or 5 best tight ends available in this free agency class. I would love to get him. Again, he's 3rd with David Njoku 4th. Again, my number 1, Isaiah Likely, but I also am really intrigued by Chiggy Okonkwo. Again, I mean, when you can get Trey McBride to look that good, even with all of the horrible stuff going on around that organization, with their NFLPA grades being Fs and facilities awful, the head coach not doing a great job in John Gannon, and then like the offense overall bad, Kyler Murray hurt all of the time, but even when he does play, he's not that good. I mean, there were just so many bad things going around for Trey McBride to still find a way to blossom through that ugly concrete of an organization. I think a lot of people, especially like the top tight ends in free agency, are going to look at that and be like, man, I want to go to be coached by the guy that did that with Trey McBride. Look no further than the Washington Commanders, who just stole one of the best tight end coaches in the NFL off the market. So Best case scenario for me is to land one of those top 4 tight ends, and Ben Sinnott finally looks like a guy worthy of a 2nd round pick. Even if he's primarily a fullback in David Blau's offense, if he can just be Kyle Juszczyk, but a little bit more receiving ability, that would be wonderful, bro. He's definitely a better athlete than Kyle Juszczyk. I just need to see it utilized. All I know is I don't need any more games where John Bates or undrafted free agent Kosin Yankov leads our tight end room in targets in any given game like they did last year, even after Zach Ertz got hurt. Please, top 4 receiving tight end. Use Ben Still to recruit that guy to come here, and then also use Ben Still to develop that guy, along with finally developing Ben Sinnott and also taking John Bates to another level, Kosin Yankov to another level. And of course, you also have like Lawrence Cager and Tyree Jackson, all of these other guys that super freak athletes, but they got it. They're super raw. Maybe he can come in and get one of those guys to develop. Who knows? Again, we just hired a tight ends coach that the thing you say about him is if he can't get greatness out of a certain tight end, then arguably nobody can. That's how trustworthy, that's how proven, and that's how great he is at his job. Shouts out to Mark Bullock too. He said, interesting hire. Still coached with Drew Petzing the last few years. Petzing is great friends with Ben Johnson, a link to David Blau, of course, but also still worked under Clint Kubiak as assistant offensive lines coach in Minnesota in 2021 and Denver in 2022. He could help us transition to zone running potentially. So this is another trying to help David Blau implement a zone running scheme type of hire. We've done that with a lot of our hires. Our offensive lines coach, our assistant offensive lines coach, all of these different people that we brought in the coaching staff since we promoted David Blau to offensive coordinator. Everything is zone run based. Us firing Bobby Johnson was showing us, hey, we're going from a gap run scheme to a zone run scheme. Moving on from Cliff Kingsbury, going from a gap run scheme to a zone run scheme. So this is just another zone run scheme hire. But in addition to that, he also just so happens to be one of the best tight end developers in all of football. Now, granted, again, like I warned y'all earlier, if you're interested, if you just want to hear about his background real quick in a quick like 1-2 minutes, here we go. He's 47 years old. Started his coaching career as an offensive assistant for Mesa State in 2008. He held an assistant role at Colorado in 2009 and 2010 before signing as California's offensive administrative assistant the following 2 years. From there, Still became UC Davis's tight ends coach and recruiting coordinator in 2013. He got his first NFL job as the Buccaneers offensive quality control coach in 2014 and was promoted to tight ends coach in 2017. Then the Falcons hired him as an offensive assistant in 2019, promoted him back to tight ends coach the following year. Then the Vikings brought him in as an assistant offensive lines coach in 2021. He held the same role with the Broncos in 2022. And then the Cardinals hired him back as a tight ends coach in 2023. And then the rest is history. He has Trey McBride looking like the best tight end in all of football. Now, I think Trey McBride is still a great player. I'm not going to sit here and act like, oh, Ben Still leaves Trey McBride and Trey McBride is still over there with the Cardinals without Ben Still. And now Trey McBride's about to fall off of a cliff and no longer be good. But I do think you could even ask Trey McBride himself. He would give a lot of the credit for why he ended up being such a great tight end to Ben Still. And again, bro, if Ben Still can't get it out of Ben Sinnott, I mean, they share the same first name, bro. Like, come on, man. If he can't do it, I don't know who can, bro. This is it, Ben Sinnott. You better figure it out before that rookie deal ends. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know about everything discussed video. Please stick on that like button, stick on the subscription button, stick on the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Really appreciate y'all for supporting every video. Again, I'm working. Like, it took me a while. I had my notes ready, but I just had to like take a nap. I had to eat something real quick just to get the energy to record this, because again, I'm feeling super sick and I'm gonna try. I'm saying all of that to say I don't know when I'm gonna get my next video out tonight, but eventually I will. Be on the lookout for another video tonight, so stay tuned. Really appreciate y'all. Of course, shouts out to Watch to the End Gang, man. I'm 28 minutes into recording this, so make sure, I just wanted to make sure that I got foggy brain right now because I'm sick, but either way, I wanted to make sure I thank y'all for making it this far in the video. If you can still hear me and see me, shouts out to Noti Gang on these videos immediately, no matter when I release them. Shouts out to late night crew, early morning crew, and of course, let me know in the comment section how you feel about everything discussed in the video. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Let me know, are you just as optimistic as I am that this is the guy that can finally unlock Ben Sinnott? And do you agree with me that you think he may be able to recruit one of these top 4 free agency tight ends? And so let me know how you feel about all of that. Let me know. Then make sure you leave a like on the way out and share this video to any and everybody you know. I really appreciate y'all. Catch y'all later. I'm out.